Hi, you're watching Gossip Man. I never thought I'd be the guy with the hidden cameras and the secret recordings. That wasn't me. I was always the straight shoe charm, the guy who'd tell you to your face if I had a problem. 20 years in the Marines teaches you that much. Direct confrontation saves lives. But when your wife of 15 years starts coming home with a different perfume on her collar, and your best friend suddenly can't look you in the eye at poker night, well, those combat instincts kick in. Something's wrong. The perimeter's been breached and you need intel before you make your move. My name's Lucas Reed. I own Reed Marine Services down in Charleston, South Carolina, one of the largest private ship repair operations on the eastern seaboard. Not bad for a kid who enlisted at 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and a chip on his shoulder. The business was my baby, built from scratch after I left the service. 12 years of 16-hour days, mortgaging everything, sleeping on a cot in my office some nights. Victoria came into my life when the business was just starting to take off. She was doing a feature on veteran entrepreneurs for the Charleston Chronicle. Smart, ambitious, beautiful with this laugh that made everyone in the room turn to look. And for some reason, she picked me, the Marine with the calloused hands and the simple dreams. "You're authentic," she told me on our third date. Do you know how rare that is in my world? I didn't. Her world was cocktail parties with senators, including her father, Richard Grayson, the three-term wonder from South Carolina, and charity galas where the minimum donation would cover my mortgage for a month. But somehow we fit. She wanted out of that world, she said. Wanted something real. So I gave her a wedding where my Marine buddies stood as groomsmen, and her society friends looked slightly uncomfortable in the Charleston heat. A house on the water that I renovated myself on weekends. 2 kids, Emma and Jack, who had her eyes in my stubborn streak. And 14 good years, until they weren't good anymore. It started with small things. Victoria began networking events that ran later and later. Her passwords changed on her laptop. Her phone suddenly always faced down on tables. She bought new clothes, started wearing makeup brands I'd never seen in our bathroom before. "Just trying to look professional, Luke," she'd say, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Dad thinks I should get back into journalism. Maybe political reporting." Her father had always wanted her back in that world. Senator Richard Grayson was old money and older power in South Carolina. The kind of politician who knew where all the bodies were buried, because he'd put some of them there himself. He'd never approved of me. At our wedding reception, drunk on expensive scotch, he'd pulled me aside. "She's slumming it with you, son," he'd said, patting my cheek like I was a child. "Enjoy it while it lasts." 14 years I'd proven him wrong. Now I was starting to wonder if he had just been patient. The confirmation came on a Tuesday evening. Victoria was upstairs taking a shower, and her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I'd never checked her messages before. Not once in our marriage, but something made me look this time. A text from Evan Mercer. "Miss you already. Last night was worth the risk. Same time Thursday. Evan, my best friend since Bud's training. The guy who'd pulled me out of a collapsed building in Fallujah. The godfather to my son. The business consultant I'd hired to help expand Reed Marine 3 years ago." I put the phone down exactly how I'd found it, walked outside to my workshop, and systematically destroyed a perfectly good oak cabinet I'd been building. Then I cleaned up, came inside, and kissed my wife goodnight like nothing had happened. Because in war, you don't let the enemy know you're coming. "You okay, babe?" Victoria asked the next morning, studying my face over her coffee mug. "You were tossing and turning all night. Just thinking about the Anderson contract, I lied. A lot riding on it." She reached across the breakfast table and squeezed my hand. The diamond on her finger caught the morning light. The ring I'd saved for 6 months to buy when I was just starting the business. I fought the urge to pull away. "You'll get it," she said with a smile that once it would have reassured me. "You always do." Jack came bounding into the kitchen, all gangly, 12-year-old limbs and boundless energy. "Dad, you promised to take me fishing this weekend." "Sure did, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "We're still on." Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and a micro-expression crossed her face. Something between anticipation and guilt. I need to get going. Morning meeting with the foundation board. She kissed Jack's head, then leaned in to kiss me. I turned slightly so her lips landed on my cheek instead of my mouth. If she noticed, she didn't show it. "Don't forget," she said, heading for the door. "Dinner at the Sullivans tonight. 7-day. The Sullivans. Diane Sullivan was Victoria's college roommate, married to a corporate attorney who golfed with Senator Grayson, and Evan would be there. He always was at these social functions. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table a while longer, watching Jack demolish a bowl of cereal while texting his friends. My son, my blood. The thought of losing him, of Victoria and her father manipulating the system to take him away, made something cold and hard for him in my chest. Not happening, not while I was breathing. That night at the Sullivans was the hardest performance of my life. Evan arrived 20 minutes after we did, full of apologies about a client call running long. He clapped me on the shoulder, handed me a beer, and asked about the Anderson contract, all while looking me straight into the eye like he hadn't been screwing my wife the night before. "Looks promising," I said, taking a pull from the bottle. "Should know by next week." "That's great, man," he lowered his voice. "Listen, I've been talking to some potential investors who might be interested if you decide to expand after landing it. Major capital injection, no strings attached." No strings except giving you leverage over my company, I thought. Out loud, I said, "Send me the details. Always open to options." Across the room, Victoria was laughing at something Alan Sullivan said, her hand resting briefly on his arm. She'd always been tactile like that. A touch, a brush of fingers, small points of connection that meant nothing. Or so I'd thought. Now I wondered how many of those casual touches had been signals I'd missed. After dinner, while the others moved to the patio for after-tea drinks, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Instead, I slipped down the hallway to the Sullivans' home office and closed the door behind me. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to a number I'd called earlier that day. "Need to meet tomorrow. Urgent." The reply came almost immediately. Midnight. The spot. When I returned to the party, Victoria was deep in conversation with the senator, their heads close together. She looked up as I approached, her smile just a fraction too bright. "There you are," she said. "Dad was just telling me about a journalism position opening up at the Post and Courier. Eider, editor, wants to meet me for lunch next week." "That's great," I said, wondering how much of it was true. "You've been talking about getting back into writing." Senator Grayson placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Victoria has too much talent to waste." "No offense to your charity work, sweetheart, but you were meant for bigger things. Bigger things than being my wife," was the unspoken addition. I smiled tightly. Victoria's brilliant at whatever she puts her mind to. Always has been. "You've been very supportive," the senator said, in a tone that suggested support was the bare minimum expected. The next day, I drove to a small office above a bait shop in the less picturesque part of Charleston. The sign on the door read Coastal Security Consultants, which was a fancy way of saying Carter Williams ran surveillance operations that skirted the edge of legal. Carter was another Marine Force recon who'd found civilian life didn't quite offer the same adrenaline rush. We'd connected through the veteran community, and I'd helped him set up his business, no questions asked. Now it was his turn. "Luke Reed," he said, opening the door. "Been a while. You don't look like you're here for a fishing charter. Need your expertise, Carter. Off the books." His eyes narrowed, but he stepped aside. "Come on in. Beer. Something stronger if you've got it." He poured 2 whiskies and I laid it out. The texts, the late nights, the subtle changes. When I mentioned Evan, Carter whistled low. "That's cold, brother, even for civilians." "I need to know what I'm dealing with," I said. "Is it just an affair, or is there more?" Carter leaned back in his chair. "You're thinking it's not just about the sex. Victoria comes from power, and my father never thought I was good enough, and suddenly she's spending a lot of time with him again after years of keeping her distance." I took a sip of whiskey, and Evan has been asking a lot of questions about the business lately. Structure, clients, financials. You think they're playing a longer game? I think I need to know what game they're playing before I make my move. Carter nodded slowly. Surveillance package. Audio, video, digital, not cheap. "I've got the money," not what I meant. He fixed me with a hard stare. "Once you go down this road, Luke, You can't unsee what you find. You ready for that? I thought about Emma and Jack asleep in their beds, about the business I built with my bare hands, about the 15 years I'd given to a woman who might be plotting behind my back. I'm ready. All right then. Carter moved to a lock cabinet and pulled out a metal case. Let's talk equipment. I'm assuming you want the works. Car, home, office, everything. I need to know exactly what they're planning. He laid out the surveillance devices, tiny cameras that could be hidden in smoke detectors, clock radios, even picture frames, audio recorders disguised as everyday objects, software to clone her phone remotely. This last one's in the gray area, legally speaking, Carter warned, holding up a USB drive. But it'll give you access to everything. Calls, texts, emails, location data. Just need 5 minutes with her phone. I'll get it, I said. Carter studied me for a moment, then nodded. Your call, brother. Let's get you set up. That night, when Victoria was in the shower, I installed the software on her phone to show him. What I didn't know yet was the extent of their betrayal. That would come soon enough. The next 2 weeks were the hardest covert op I'd ever run, and I'd operated behind enemy lines in 3 different countries. During the day, I was the same old Luke, running the business, coaching Jack's baseball team, helping Emma with her science project. I laughed at the right times, kissed my wife when expected, and even had dinner with Evan and his latest girlfriend without reaching across the table to break his jaw. At night, I reviewed the intelligence. Carter had been thorough. Cameras in Victoria's car, a clone of her phone, access to her email, a tracker on Evan's vehicle. It was a digital dragnet catching everything. The footage confirmed the affair. That hurt, but it wasn't a surprise anymore. What was surprising was what they talked about between their hotel room sessions. Richard says the judges are lined up, Evan said in one recording as they lay in a hotel bed I was paying for with my credit card miles. Family court, business court, even criminal if it comes to that. Victoria's laugh was cold, in a way I'd never heard before. Daddy always delivers. Luke won't know what hit him. Are you sure about going this far? Evan asked. And for a second, I thought maybe my old friend had some shred of conscience left. I mean, taking the business is one thing, but the kids, we need full custody, Victoria said. It's the only way to make sure he doesn't have the resources to fight back. Besides, Richard has people who will testify LL's been unstable. PTSD, violent tendencies, the whole veteran gone bad narrative. And you're okay with that? He's still your children's father. There was a pause, and I found myself holding my breath. I've given him 15 years of my life, she finally said. I could have been somebody by now, running a major paper, maybe even following Daddy into politics. Instead, I'm stuck in Charleston playing house with a guy who's happiest when he's covered in engine grease. The pain was physical, like taking a round to the chest, but I kept watching, kept listening. One night, I was reviewing footage when a new recording came in from Victoria's car. She was with her father discussing the next phase of their plan. The contract announcement is set for next Friday. Senator Grayson said, once Reed Marine wins, we trigger the regulatory investigation. The shell company steps in to save the business, and simultaneously, you file for divorce with allegations of instability and potential violence. And Evan gets control of the company? Victoria asked. Nominally, the actual control will rest with our investment group. Evan's just the face. Someone Luke trusted, which makes the takeover more elegant. Victoria laughed. Luke always did have a blind spot when it came to Evan. Brothers in arms and all that nonsense. Men like your husband live by an outdated code, her father said dismissively. Loyalty, honor, archaic concepts in today's world. It makes them predictable and exploitable, Victoria added. My hands shook as I paused the recording. They weren't just planning to divorce me or take my business. This was a complete annihilation strategy. My company, my reputation, my children, everything I'd built, everything I loved. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. It's me, I said when the line connected. I need more than surveillance now. I need leverage. What kind of leverage are we talking about? Carter asked. The kind that makes a U.S. senator back off. I need everything on Richard Grayson. Financial records, communications, evidence of corruption, whatever you can find. That's a tall order, Luke. In dangerous territory. He's planning to destroy me, Carter. I don't have a choice. There was a long pause on the other end. I know someone who might be able to help. Former FBI specializes in financial crimes now, but it won't be cheap. Whatever it costs, I'll make the call. But Luke, be careful. You're playing with fire here. I'm already burning, I replied. Might as well fight back. The next morning, Victoria surprised me by suggesting we take the kids to Sullivan's Island for the day. You've been working so hard lately, she said over breakfast. Let's have some family time. The performance was impressive. Concerned wife, devoted mother, suggesting quality time with the family she was secretly plotting to tear apart. I wondered how long she'd been this good an actress. Had our entire marriage been a performance? Great idea, I said, matching her pretense with my own. Kids would love that. And they did. Jack spent hours in the waves with his boogie board, while Emma collected shells along the shoreline. Victoria spread a blanket on the sand, looking carefree in a sundress and floppy hat. Every inch the perfect Charleston wife. Sitting beside her, watching our children play, a strange thought occurred to me. We could still look like the perfect family to outsiders, the successful businessman, the senator's daughter, their beautiful children, the American dream, Charleston style. But it was all a facade now, paper thin and ready to tear. Penny for your thoughts, Victoria asked, slipping her sunglasses down to look at me. Just thinking about how lucky I am, I lied. This, us, the kids. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, regret, before she pushed her sunglasses back up. Yes, we've built a good life. Have we? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She turned to me, her expression hidden behind the dark lenses. What do you mean? For a moment, I almost broke character. Almost laid it all out right there on Sullivan's Island, with our children playing nearby. But the tactician in me held back. Nothing. Just sometimes I wonder if this is enough for you. The business Charleston me. She reached out and took my hand, her wedding ring glinting in the sunlight. You worry too much, Luke. I'm exactly where I want to be. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that if I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed her. That was the most terrifying part. How easily she could look me in the eye and lie. That night, after the kids were asleep, Victoria announced she had a charity committee meeting. Shouldn't be late, she said, kissing my cheek. Don't wait up. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I went to my home office and logged into the surveillance system. The GPS tracker showed her car heading not toward the community center, where her committee usually met, but toward a boutique hotel downtown. Evan's car was already there. I closed the laptop. I didn't need to watch what would happen next. Instead, I made a call to the number Carter had given me. Monica Diaz. A crisp female voice answered. Ms. Diaz, my name is Lucas Reed. Carter Williams gave me your number. I understand you might be able to help me with a sensitive situation. Mr. Reed, yes, Carter briefed me. You're looking for leverage against a sitting U.S. senator. That's correct. You realize what you're asking is both difficult and potentially dangerous. I do. There was a pause on the line. I don't come cheap, Mr. Reed. Money isn't an issue. It's not just about money. If I take this on, I need complete transparency from you. Why do you need this leverage? What's your endgame? I took a deep breath. Senator Grayson is conspiring with my wife and my former best friend to destroy my business, take my children, and ruin my reputation. I need enough evidence of his corruption to make him back off. Blackmail, in other words. Self-defense. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. Let's meet tomorrow. Tookpon, there's a diner off Highway 17 called Blue Plate. Come alone, I'll be there. The next day, I met Monica Diaz for the first time. She wasn't what I expected. Mid-40s, Sharp eyes, no-nonsense pantsuit. She looked more like a bank executive than an ex-FBI agent turned private investigator. "You understand what you're asking for carries significant risk," she said after we'd ordered coffee. "Not just legal risk, but personal. Men like Richard Grayson don't take threats lying down." "I'm not looking to threaten him publicly," I explained, to have enough leverage to protect what's mine. "And what exactly is yours, Mr. Reed? Your business, your children, your wife?" The question caught me off guard. "My wife has made her choice," I said after a moment. "I'm fighting for my kids in the business I built." Monica studied me. "Carter said you were military, Marines, Force Recon. That explains the approach, strategic, methodical." She took a sip of her coffee. "I can help you, Mr. Reed, but I need to be clear about something. If I find evidence of criminal activity that poses an imminent threat to national security or public safety, I'm obligated to report it. I'm not interested in exposing state secrets, Miss Diaz. Just garden variety corruption. There's nothing garden variety about corruption at the senatorial level." She pulled out a contract from her briefcase. "My fee, half up front, half on delivery." The number made me blink, but I nodded. "Agreed. I'll need everything you have so far. Recordings, texts, emails, anything that points to the senator's involvement in this scheme. You'll have it today." She stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Mr. Reed. This may get worse before it gets better. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the recordings I'd already heard, the betrayal that cut deeper than any combat wound. It can't get much worse than finding out the mother of your children is plotting to destroy you. Monica's expression softened slightly. "In my experience, Mr. Reed, things can always get worse, but I'll do my best to make sure they get better for you." As she walked away, I wondered what I just set in motion. This wasn't just about exposing an affair anymore. I was taking on a U.S. senator, challenging a man who'd spent decades accumulating power and influence. But he'd made a critical mistake. He'd threatened my children, and there was nothing I wouldn't do to protect them. While Monica dug into Senator Grayson's activities, I had another front to manage my company. The government contract announcement was coming, and if Victoria was right, Reed Marine would win. It would look like the biggest opportunity of my career, but it would actually be the trap that destroyed everything. I needed to be ready. Jason Kim had been my operations manager for 6 years. Smart, loyal, and most importantly, had no connection to Evan or Victoria's social circle. If there was anyone in my company I could trust, it was him. "I need you to set up a shadow structure," I told him in my office after hours, with a signal jammer running to prevent any electronic eavesdropping. "Subsidiary LLC registered in Delaware. Transfer our core intellectual property, client relationships, and as many assets as we can without raising red flags." Jason's eyes widened. "Boss, that sounds like I'm preparing for someone to try to take over the company." "I am." "Is this about the government contract? Because if there's something shady, the contract's a Trojan horse," I said. "We're going to win it, and then they're going to use it to destroy us, unless we're prepared." Jason studied my face. "This isn't like you, Luke. You've always been straight arrow. Trust goes both ways. I've discovered some people in my life haven't been playing straight with me." He nodded slowly. "The new structure would need to be completely separate. Different banks, different accounting firms. We'd need a trusted proxy to control it until whatever you're expecting happens." "Can you set it up?" "Yes. It'll take about a week working nights, and it'll cost. Do it whatever it costs." I handed him a thumb drive. "This has the framework I want. Start tonight." As Jason left, I received a text from Monica. "Progress. Need to meet?" We met at the same diner the next day. Monica looked tired but energized, the way investigators get when they're onto something big. "Your father-in-law's quite the operator," she said without preamble. "I've only scratched the surface, but what I'm finding, it's extensive." "What kind of extensive?" "The kind that spans decades. Judicial appointments sold to the highest bidder. Government contracts steered to donors. regulatory decisions influenced by offshore payments. She pushed a coffee mug around on the table. He's built an impressive machine. Can you document it? Provide proof? Some of it. Yes. I've accessed financial records showing suspicious patterns, communications that suggest quid pro quo arrangements. But the real evidence will be harder to get, such as direct recordings, witness statements, the kind of evidence that would stand up in court. I leaned forward. I don't need court admissible evidence. I just need enough that he knows I could destroy him if he pushes forward with their plan. Monica studied me. That's a dangerous game, Mr. Reed. Men like Richard Grayson don't scare easily. Everyone has their breaking point. Find me what I need to reach his. She nodded slowly. There's a beach house on Kiowa Island off the books, owned through a shell company. Senator Grayson uses it for sensitive meetings, the kind that don't appear on any official calendar. Can you get access? Not directly, but I can set up surveillance. It's isolated enough that we can place equipment without being detected. Do it. It'll take time, and it significantly increases your exposure if discovered. I met her gaze steadily. I'm already Alan, Miss Diaz. They're planning to take everything from me. I have nothing to lose. The waiting was the hardest part. Days stretched into a week, then 2. I played my role: beautiful husband, dedicated father, focused businessman. Victoria continued her charade as well, though I noticed small tells now that I knew what to look for. The slight smile when certain texts came through, the work calls that took her into another room. Meanwhile, Jason was making progress on the shadow company structure, moving assets incrementally to avoid suspicion, and Monica was slowly building a case against Senator Grayson, piece by damning piece. Then came the breakthrough. Monica called me at 2 a.m., voice tight with excitement. I've got it, she said when I answered. Recorded conversation at the beach house. The senator, a federal judge, and 2 corporate executives. Explicit discussion of a bribery scheme involving offshore accounts and judicial rulings. How solid is it? Crystal clear. The senator even mentions previous arrangements by name. It's a prosecutor's dream. In my situation, any mention of that? Yes, they discussed the plan for Reed Marine. It's exactly what you suspected. Rig contract, manufactured violations, coordinated takeover. The senator refers to it as the Victoria situation. My grip tightened on the phone. What else? Luke, it's bad. They're not just planning to take your business. The senator has arranged for evidence to be planted, suggesting you've been embezzling from government contracts for years. They want you in prison, not just divorced and broke. The cold calculation of it stunned me. Not content with taking my company and my kids, they wanted to lock me away too. Complete destruction. What else do we need? I asked, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I've compiled everything into a secure file. Financial records, communications, the recording from the beach house. It's all there enough to launch multiple federal investigations. When can I have it? I can deliver it tomorrow. But Luke, once you have this, you're holding a live grenade. Be very careful how you use it. I know exactly how I'm going to use it. The next night, Monica delivered a flash drive containing everything she'd found. It was more than I'd hoped for. Detailed evidence of corruption spanning years, involving dozens of officials, corporations, and millions of dollars. At the center of it all, Senator Richard Grayson, power broker and puppet master. And buried within the files, the complete plan for my destruction. Every detail laid out, from the rigged contract to the false criminal charges to the custody arrangement that would separate me from my children. The night before the contract announcement, I got another call from Monica. We need to meet, she said, her voice tight. Not on the phone. We met at the same 24-hour diner, the kind of place where truckers stop for coffee at 3 a.m. and nobody remembers faces. Monica slid into the booth across from me, bags under her eyes. She pushed a second flash drive across the table. That's a backup of everything I found. Keep it somewhere secure, separate from the first one. Has something changed? She glanced around the diner before leaning in. I think they know someone's been digging. One of my sources at the federal courthouse was approached yesterday, asked about unusual requests for certain financial records. Could it be traced back to you? To me? Not directly. I've been careful, but the senator has a lot of eyes and ears. If he suspects someone's building a case, she left the implication hanging. We need to move fast, then. What exactly are you planning, Luke? I met her gaze steadily. Tomorrow, Reed Marine is going to win that government contract. There'll be a celebration at the shipyard. Victoria has arranged for divorce papers to be served to me there. Maximum public humiliation. And I'm going to let it happen, but I'm going to be ready with a counter-offer. I tapped the flash drive, one that the senator and Victoria won't be able to refuse. Monica studied me. Blackmail is a dangerous game. So is trying to destroy a man's life and take his children. She nodded slowly. Be careful, Luke. And if this goes sideways, I was never involved. Understood. The day of the contract announcement arrived with picture-perfect Charleston weather. Blue skies, just enough breeze off the harbor to keep the heat at bay. We'd set up a tent in the shipyard for the celebration with catering and open bar, and even a small stage for the announcement. All of my employees were there along with clients, vendors, and local business leaders. Victoria was wearing a blue dress I'd never seen before, working the crowd like the politician's daughter. She was. Evan stood near the bar, checking his watch repeatedly. At exactly 2 p.m., my phone rang with the official notification that Reed Marine had won the contract. I made a show of answering, smiling, thanking the caller. The crowd applauded as I announced our success. This is a game changer for Reed Marine, I said from the small stage. A chance to take what we've built together to the next level. I caught Victoria's eye in the crowd. She was smiling, but there was something predatory incident. Beside her, Evan was already typing on his phone, probably alerting their conspirators that the trap was set. Before we really get this party started, I continued, I want to take a moment to thank some people who made this possible. I went through the expected list, my management team, key employees, supportive clients. Then I paused, and I'd like to recognize someone who's been instrumental in positioning us for this opportunity, my longtime friend and business consultant, Evan Mercer. Evan, would you join me up here? He looked surprised but pleased, exactly as I'd expected. Evan always did love the spotlight. As he made his way to the stage, I saw a man in a suit enter the tent. Right on schedule. Victoria noticed him too, and I watched her straighten, a smile of anticipation crossing her face. Evan reached the stage and shook my hand, leaning in for a backslapping hug. I returned it, whispering in his ear, I know everything, you backstabbing son of a... He stiffened, but before he could react, I turned back to the microphone. And finally, I see we have a visitor. Sir, are you looking for someone? All eyes turned to the man in the suit, who looked momentarily flustered at being called out. I'm looking for Lucas Reed. That's me. And you are? David Connors. I represent Victoria Reed in a legal matter. He held up a manila envelope. I have documents to serve you. The crowd murmured in confusion. Victoria's smile widened. This was it. The public humiliation they'd planned. Serving me with divorce papers at what should have been my moment of triumph. I nodded calmly. Of course. Please come up. As the lawyer made his way forward, I turned to the crowd. Folks, enjoy the food and drinks. I just need to handle a quick bit of business. The lawyer reached the stage and handed me the envelope. You've been served, Mr. Reed. I took it with a smile. Thank you, and I have something for you as well. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope of my own, handing it to him. Please see that Mrs. Reed and her father receive this immediately. The lawyer looked confused, but took the envelope. I leaned in closer. I'd suggest you look at what's inside, too. You might want to reconsider who you're representing. As he walked away, I turned to find Evan, trying to slip off the stage. I grabbed his arm, fingers digging in just enough to make him wheeze. Not so fast, brother, I said, keeping my voice low. We're just getting started. Victoria intercepted her lawyer before he could leave the tent. I watched as they huddled in a corner, her face impatient as he opened the envelope I'd given him. Inside was a letter laying out exactly what I knew about their plan, about the rigged contract, about the planned legal assault, about Evan's embezzlement, and about Senator Grayson's extensive corruption. Attached to the letter was a single photograph. Senator Grayson, meeting with a known fixer for the construction industry, handing over an envelope in what looked like a parking garage. The flash drive Monica had given me contained hundreds more like it, along with documents, recordings, and enough evidence to end several careers. I watched Victoria's face change as she read, color draining away. She looked up, eyes searching until they found me still on the stage. I raised my glass in a mock toast. The lawyer was already on his phone, no doubt calling the senator. Good, let him panic too. Evan tried again to pull away. Luke, whatever you think you know, shut up, I said pleasantly, maintaining my smile for anyone watching. You've been stealing from me for 2 years. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I can explain. Save it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign effective immediately. You're going to disappear from Charleston, from South Carolina, and from my family's life. If you ever contact Victoria, my children, or anyone associated with Reed Marine again, the evidence of your embezzlement goes to the police. His face contorted. You self-righteous prick. You think you're so perfect, don't you? The honorable Marine, the dedicated family man. You have no idea what Victoria really thinks of you? I know exactly what she thinks of me. I've heard the recordings. I let that sink in, watching his eyes widen in realization. That's right. Every hotel room, every conversation, every plan you made. You bugged us. That's illegal, I laughed. You're conspiring to steal my company and take my children, and you're worried about legality? Get out of my shipyard, Evan. You have 48 hours to leave town. I released his arm and walked off the stage, heading straight for Victoria and her increasingly panicked-looking lawyer. Is there a problem with the documents, counselor? I asked pleasantly. Mr. Reed, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I cut him off. Just a change in leverage. I believe my terms are clearly stated in that letter. Your client has 24 hours to decide. Victoria's face was a mixture of fury and fear. You can't possibly think you'll get away with this. My father. Your father is currently receiving the same information I just gave you along with a simple choice. Back off or I release everything to the FBI and every major news outlet in the country. I stepped closer. Did you really think I wouldn't fight for my children? For what I've built? Luke? She hissed, glancing around to make sure no one could hear. Be reasonable. We can work something out. We certainly can. You signed my divorce agreement with my terms. Full custody of the kids. I keep the business, the house, everything I've worked for. You get a generous settlement that will let you start over somewhere far from here. I smiled coldly. Or option 2, mutual destruction. Your father goes to prison, your reputation is destroyed, and you get nothing. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice wavered. Try me. I turned to the lawyer. 24 hours. My attorney will be expecting your call. I walked away back toward the party that was still in full swing, completely unaware of the drama unfolding in the corner. As I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes for the contract, I felt strangely calm. The trap they had set for me was now their prison. All I had to do was wait. Senator Richard Grayson was not a man accustomed to being outmaneuvered. When he showed up at my house at 11 that night, I was waiting for him on the porch, bourbon in hand. You have some nerve, son, he said, climbing the steps. He looked older than I remembered, the lines in his face deeper, but his eyes were still cold and calculating. I'd offer you a drink, but I don't think this is a social call. What do you want, Reed? Really want money? A position? Everyone has a price. I sipped my bourbon. I already told Victoria, I want my kids. I want my business. I want you and your daughter out of my life. And the information you claim to have, insurance, it stays buried as long as you keep your end of the bargain. He studied me for a long moment. You know, I never understood what Victoria saw in you. A grunt with delusions of grandeur. But I underestimated you, didn't I? Most people do. It's an advantage. If I agree to your terms, what guarantees do I have that you won't release that information anyway? You have my word. I looked him straight in the eye, which, unlike yours, actually means something. He laughed, a harsh sound at the quiet night. Your word. The word of a man who spied on his own wife. The word of a man who fought for his country, who built something from nothing, who loves his children enough to do whatever it takes to protect them. I set my glass down. You've been selling influence and rigging the system for decades, Senator. I just want what's mine, nothing more. He was silent for a long moment, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, he nodded. Victoria will sign your agreement. The business interest from Evans' company will be transferred back. But I want all copies of whatever evidence you've collected. Not a chance. That stays with me in a secure location with instructions for release if anything happens to me, or if our agreement is violated. His jaw tightened, but he nodded again. You're either very brave or very stupid, taking on a man like me. I've been called worse, Ben. I stood up. We're done here, Senator. I suggest you never set foot on my property again. As he turned to leave, he paused. She never loved you. You know, it was always about rebellion, proving she could make her own choices. The words hit harder than I expected. I kept my face neutral, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing the pain. Maybe, I said finally. But I loved her once, and that's worth something. He didn't respond, just walked back to his car and drove away into the Charleston night. The next 24 hours moved quickly. Victoria signed the divorce agreement, giving me full custody of the children with generous visitation rights for her. She would keep her trust fund and receive a lump sum settlement that would allow her to restart her life elsewhere, far from Charleston and her father's influence. Evan disappeared, cleaned out his accounts, and was reportedly headed west. I later heard he tried to take money from Victoria before he left, proving that treachery was simply in his nature. The government contract was quietly withdrawn from Reed Marine due to regulatory reconsideration. I didn't fight it. That contract had never been real anyway, just bait for a trap I'd avoided. Telling Emma and Jack about the divorce was the hardest part. They cried, asked questions I couldn't fully answer, and for a while our home felt hollow. But children are resilient. We established new routines. Victoria visited regularly at first, though those visits grew less frequent as she rebuilt her life in Atlanta, eventually taking a position with a media company there. As for Senator Grayson, he remained in office, though rumors swirled about his sudden recusal from certain committee assignments. He avoided Charleston when possible, and never contacted me directly again. The evidence remained secure, a sort of Damocles I hoped never to use, but wouldn't hesitate to drop if necessary. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected visit at the shipyard. Monica Diaz walked into my office unannounced, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. Just wanted to check in, she said, taking a seat across from my desk. See how things turned out. Better than expected, I replied. Business is good. Kids are adjusting. Senator Grayson is keeping his distance. In Victoria, living her new life in Atlanta. Minimal contact, which is for the best. Monica nodded, studying me. And how are you doing, Luke? Really doing? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on protecting what was mine, on winning the war they'd started, that I hadn't given much thought to the aftermath. I'm surviving, I said finally. One day at a time, that's how it goes. She stood to leave. Well, I just wanted to make sure my most interesting client was still in one piece. Thanks for checking in and for everything else. At the door, she turned back. You know, most men in your position would have gone scorched earth, released everything. Consequences be damned. Mutually assured destruction benefits no one, especially not my kids. Smart and rare. She smiled slightly. Take care of yourself, Luke Reed. After she left, I stood at my office window, looking out at the shipyard. My shipyard secured now, safe from those who tried to take it. The price had been high. A marriage, friendships, illusions shattered. But I'd protected what mattered most. 3 years after the showdown with Senator Grayson, Reed Marine opened a second location in Savannah. The expansion I'd always dreamed of achieved on my terms. Emma was starting high school, growing into a thoughtful young woman with her mother's looks. but thankfully none of her duplicity. Jack was excelling in both academics and baseball, talking already about following me into the Marines someday. Life moved forward, not always easily, not always smoothly, but forward nonetheless. The envelope I'd handed to Victoria's lawyer that day had changed everything. Exposed plots, revealed true natures, altered the course of multiple lives. A simple paper envelope containing truths that couldn't be unlearned. They had underestimated me, assumed that because I played by rules, lived by a code, I would be easy to destroy. What they failed to understand was that the same training that taught me honor and loyalty also taught me to fight when necessary, to use every available resource, to never surrender what matters. I still kept the evidence secure, updated regularly with new information. Not out of vindictiveness, but prudence. Senator Grayson was still out there, still powerful. Men like him had long memories and longer reach, but so did I. I was Lucas Reed, Marine, businessman, father, and I protected what was mine.